Well, do you think we're ready to begin with roll call? Colleen,
Yeah,
or are
I
you
think
still trying to answer
I
some
think we can
emails?
go ahead. I set the live stream's running now. So we have 65 people present. So I think we can go ahead and just start the roll call, and then I can just have people check in if they aren't here.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the December 4th Faculty Senate meeting. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we will begin with the roll call. So I'll turn things over to the Executive Secretary, Colleen.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the roll call. If you can just unmute and say here. If you're having an issue with your microphone, just type it in the chat. And if you're a proxy for someone, I made a note of most of them, but just in case I missed one, let me know. Banford. Barber.
Here.
Barrett.
Here.
Boumanier. Branyan.
Here.
Chong.
Here.
Corley.
Here.
Deweese.
Here.
Elman.
Here.
Urban.
Here.
Fawcett.
Here.
Fuentes.
Here.
Galt.
Here.
Geyer.
Here.
Gordon.
Here.
Graffius.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Gupta.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Hanson. Hill.
Here.
Hodges. Ivory.
Here.
Stewart Ferhata Pasmino.
Here.
Kellison.
Here.
Kimbrell.
Here.
Nice.
Here.
Koskas.
Here.
Hunt for Kramer.
Here.
Lu Yan Voon.
Yeah.
Lee.
Yeah.
McKinnon.
Here.
Mbai.
Here.
McKendry Smith.
Here.
McLean.
Here.
Nickel.
Here.
Mosier for Ogletree.
Here.
Pasha.
Here.
Pazani.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Richter.
Here.
Self.
Here.
Scullin. Snipes.
Here.
Sterling.
Here.
Morris for Swift.
Here.
Tawidi.
Here.
Van Valen.
Here.
Volkert.
Here.
Wadlington.
Here.
Wofford. Okay, Sarah is having trouble getting in, so I'll keep a lookout. Just to check back on Scullin. Hodges. Boumanier. Banford. All right, thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, the the first order of business after the roll call is to approve the minutes. So can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Okay, very good. And second?
I second.
Okay, excellent. Any discussion of the minutes? If not, we'll proceed with the poll for the vote. Did it pass, Colleen, I assume?
Yes, approved.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Let's go to the, excuse me, let's go to the committee reports in just a minute. So we'll now proceed to the UPC committee reports. And the way this is going to work, I know there's going to be some discussion of a couple items. And if you would like to participate in the discussion, you can use the raised hand feature, which is should be found under the participants menu. If you're unable to locate that, of course, you can try to get our attention through the chat. But I will, as always with every meeting, try to keep an eye on that and call on people in the order in which I see the raised hands. So at this point, let's turn things over to Rosemary Kellison, chair of the UPC, and can present your first agenda item.
Thank you, Dan. So our first item is coming from CACSI, and this is a modification to the Anthropology BS. There are 3 key modifications. The first is adding a new concentration within the major in cross-cultural health and spirituality. The other 2 are correcting errors in the course catalog. One is some courses that were missing from the degree program, and the other was the total degree credit hours, which hadn't been updated to reflect a change in the credit hours of one particular course.
Okay, so first proposal is for the modification of the BS in anthropology. Any discussion? Brian.
Hi, yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Dan. I do have a couple of concerns regarding this concentration that I'd like to bring to the Senate. The first is the justification for this certificate states, and this is in Curriculog, to address newly emerging interests in employment opportunities in the field of global health and wellness. It appears from what I can see that there are no classes on the proposed concentration that include the words health or wellness. This is concerning that perhaps similar language such as providing employment opportunities in the field of global health and wellness, that's also in the justification, that could be used in the UWG course catalog when describing this concentration. I really think in an effort not to mislead students that are interested in the areas of health and wellness, that perhaps writing the justification for this concentration can be further examined. Keep in mind, we do have degrees at UWG in health and community wellness and social and behavioral health, which is in CACSI, and a minor in health and community wellness. And we need to continue to have meaningful and collaborative conversations in order to negate duplication and confusion for our students, our advisors, and even potential employers that are looking for distinct skill sets related to this area of health and wellness. Further, the justification also states that the anthropology concentration in cross-cultural health and spirituality provides, and it uses the word specialized education on the ways the spirituality and health intersect cross-culturally. And so I'm concerned that there's 6 hours of the health and medical focus in this area. And so to justify this as a specialized education for someone pursuing a career in the idea of global health and wellness, Also, again, they're not new courses, no new assessment plans. So I'd like further discussion on how this is specialized. Perhaps the language of there's an area of a health and medical focus that is in the anthropology degree, and maybe that can be further examined to depict the uniqueness of this concentration that seems to be relevant for anthropology majors. So my ask is recommend either tabling this item to provide time for collaborative discussion, or at a minimum, maybe a friendly amendment to change the name of the area of health and medical focus, as that's very broad. And the effort would be not to confuse or mislead students, and provide distinctive language that would clarify this focus area.
Okay, well, thank you, Brian. So maybe we can get a response from either Rosemary or someone from anthropology.
I believe Dr. Snipes is here.
I am. I am.
Okay, Marjorie, go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, this is an approach that is looking at a 360-degree view of the person. So I think it's important to see or to understand that health isn't just a Western medical perspective. Health is holistic. Anthropology is a holistic discipline. It has 4 subfields: biological, linguistics, cultural, and archaeology. And all of those subfields actually are involved in looking at issues of wellness, even though we aren't using that in the title. So taking an approach that uses a cultural focus and linguistics, but including, it's not just 6 hours in medical biological. If you'll look in the electives, you really could argue that there are 24 credits that are in this concentration focusing on those themes, because we all teach with a 4-field approach. So human anatomy and genetics is part of most of what we do, even in culture. And so this is filtered in every class that we're teaching. I don't see it as being just a Western medical approach. And as far as globalization and forming a new course, the entire mission of anthropology is about cross-cultural learning. The specialization that we're talking about here is to actually keep students in a streamline where they're learning ethnographic field methods, which is working with living peoples. The emerging field is actually applied anthropology and medical anthropology, which is growing enormously.
Okay, thank you. Brian, do you have a follow-up or want to respond?
Yes, I think Marjorie, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
You mentioned 2 terms at the end. I think it was medical anthropology and one other one as well. What was that term?
Applied anthropology.
Applied, thank you, applied anthropology.
Yeah.
And I feel like those terms may better depict and help distinguish what it is that the intent of the change of the degree. And I think that would also help students understand when we use general terms like health or wellness, that it could provide some opportunities for us to, and forgive me for this, but maybe not sound duplicative in our approach. And that seems, in my mind, when you mention those terms, to make it more distinctive.
So if I understand you correctly, Brian, you're willing to consider the proposal, but you would like a change in the nomenclature, change in the title of the concentration. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. The first that I saw this was right now, this when the minutes came out, and had some discussions with others in my area, health and community wellness. And so, being involved in that in a collaborative area, especially when using global terms like health and then making them distinctive and really focusing in on the nomenclature so that it becomes more evident to students and or advisors would be very helpful, yes.
But aren't we trying to teach students as well the meanings of our own disciplines? And so it isn't just a single term with a single meaning. I mean, health and anthropology, when you're looking at Survival International and indigenous groups that are being decimated today, health is a bigger term than just body.
Absolutely. I would agree that health has multiple dimensions. Absolutely.
So everything we do as far as looking at culture, we see that as health related. And spirituality, of course, is embedded in culture. I guess we don't see it as competing with you. It seems to be a completely different approach. And I would hope that since it's part of the, we're not actually separate from the 4-field major, we're actually being assessed similarly. It's just a pathway within that major that allows students to gather up and concentrate on that area. Since they would go through intro to anthropology and all of the same introductory courses, they would have a more global understanding of health. At least that's our idea of the way that would work.
Angie would like to join the conversation, I think. Go ahead, Angie.
Could, and thank you so much for your explanations about it. Could the word an anthropological study of health be added into the title to differentiate it? I mean, that it could be just semantics, a language term, but that way it would delineate it from health courses through the health and wellness department.
Okay, and Marjorie may want to respond to that, but I guess I see Emily wants to speak, so I'll turn things over to Emily.
Hi, everyone. So from what I understand, this is a concentration within the anthropology major. So the people who would be doing this would be anthropology majors. And so I don't think anthropology should necessarily need to say like anthropology major, anthropology degree with concentration in anthropological, cross-cultural health and spirituality, because it's already in their degree.
That's the idea. It's a pathway within the degree program, not being separately assessed.
But so I mean, I would think that contextualization would not necessarily be necessary because it's a pathway that's already embedded in the anthropology degree. And so it's not like a standalone thing.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? We may be ready to proceed to a vote fairly soon. You know, I think this issue is probably similar to a lot of issues that are emerging, that I think it fits a recurring pattern that a number of departments, a number of programs are, I think, recognizing that there are certain types of broad categories of knowledge that students are interested in or that are necessary to prepare students for the third decade of the 21st century. So for example, social justice, we've seen in the last few months a number of proposals from different programs that all have that theme in their title. We're probably going to see other similar themes, and I guess in each of these cases, one approach could be that we look at those and say, well, is this going to I guess encroach on another department's purview, or we could say that there may be a lot of different perspectives that could be applied to those broad themes, and that collectively there could be, you know, a number of different angles on a topic.
Dan, I would, this is Brian. I would just like to say that, you know, we're not trying to work against anyone. It was just the idea of collaborating to do exactly what you said, in the effort to not mislead students when we're using general terms like health and wellness.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And point well taken. Well, I think, Ben Geyer would like to speak. Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, just trying to get things clicked. I just wanted to say, as a total outsider to both of your fields, that I, it's if I could read between the lines, it sounds like Brian maybe has a concern about what students are drawn to which program, and making sure that the students that belong in an education context to learn about these topics ends up there. Personally, again, as an outsider, I feel like the approach between a anthropology approach and an education approach to these kinds of issues are going to be so completely different methodologically, and just the people who would be interested in doing it, it's so completely different that I would imagine that part of what students are learning here is not just ideas, but how ideas fit into larger histories of ideas. And I think it would be apparent very quickly to students what way would appeal to them to study. I'm having a hard time seeing how it's a conflict.
Okay, very good. Angie.
I can't unraise my hand.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I'm sorry. We'll go to Nick then.
Yes, I was just looking at the curricula entries, and it seems like a lot of the language that Brian is raising is in the rationale and not in the program description that will go in the course catalog. So, I would suggest that this may be, something that would fall under the friendly amendment category, since the rationale is not language that students are going to be reading, to my knowledge. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, Brian, how would you like to proceed? I guess a possibility could be, if you have specific language that you would like to introduce as an amendment, whether friendly or otherwise, you could introduce that. If not, are we ready for an up or down vote, or would you like to say anything in response?
Sure. Yeah, I would. My goal would be to potentially table this item in hopes that a collaborative discussion between the degree programs that focus on the multidimensional models of health and wellness, and the effort is not to win students over to one area or another, but just to provide a collaborative effort. Again, we offer majors and minors. A lot of our minors, for example, our health and community wellness has a minor that maybe there would be classes that in anthropology or sociology or other fields that would complement their study in the multi-dimensional areas of health, and vice versa. So having those discussions before something like this happens, I think is good practice for a university.
Okay. So you used the term table, and just kind of a technical point of clarification, because I think this may come up for other things as well. In preparation for this meeting, I tried to look up the definition of table on Robert's Rules of Order. And what I think you're saying actually is either return to committee, or more likely you really want it to return to the department to be reworked and resubmitted. Technically, the term table just means postpone actually during a meeting, and then bring the same thing up for a vote. So I think that the best course of action with that, if we don't have an amendment actually to be brought forward at the moment, would just be for those who feel that way, to vote against the resolution when it comes up. That is, vote against the proposal. Those who are in support of it can vote for it. And of course, if the proposal is defeated, then it would return to the department and could be reworked. Shelley.
Sorry, I think Emily had a really good point, and this is an embedded certificate, so it's only for anthropology majors. I think collaboration And I think that's a great idea for the two colleges to talk and add to and create other offerings that would be so holistic. But for this certificate, it's embedded and only for anthropology majors. So I don't know why we would need to send it back. Just wanted to point that out.
Dan, I can't find the raise hand feature. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Brian, I agree. Your idea of having an interdisciplinary approach to health could be something that we consider that involves various departments. And Shelley had just spoken to what I was trying to say. This is an anthropological path. It's not meant to be interdisciplinary. It's our program is quite broad because that's the nature of our discipline. And so the idea is that our students who are particularly interested in a certain focus can actually do that in anthropology and complete their degree in our field, because that isn't foreign to what we do. So the spirit of interdisciplinarity is to be applauded. And I would say, hey, let's come up with another program. I mean, schools that focus on these huge topics like health bring in more and more students. And so I think the idea that we're actually teaching this and overlapping is not negative, first of all. And then secondly, again, this is an anthropological degree. It isn't, so we wouldn't normally have electives from other departments in our own degree programs. At least that's nothing we've ever done before.
Okay, well, I think we are probably ready to call the question. So for clarification, there are two anthropology proposals that we're going to be voting on. We're going to vote on them separately. The one that we're voting on now is on the modification to the BS in anthropology to add this particular concentration. And then subsequent to that, we'll take up the embedded certificate.
Just to clarify real quick, Dan, the second item is from sociology. It's different.
The embedded certificate is from sociology?
Correct.
Okay. I guess I was confused on that. Okay. Well, that would also explain why it's a good idea to take these two separately. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Well, let's proceed to a vote. Colleen will run the poll. And Colleen, you can tell me when we have a quorum on this or when everyone's votes come in.
I'm going to give it a little over 30 seconds.
Okay.
I think it's going to be pretty close.
Okay.
Well, maybe not that close. All right, we have quorum.
Okay. Okay, the proposal passes with 74% support, 22% no, 4% abstain. So the motion carries. So now we'll move to the second item from the UPC, and I apologize for the confusion, but the embedded certificate in health and society from sociology. Rosemary.
Yes, that's correct. So this is a certificate that is restricted to sociology majors only, and it is in the study of health and medicine from a sociological perspective.
Okay, well, we'll open it up for discussion if anyone has questions or concerns, anything that people want to share. Brian, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dan. And again, this is the lens that I'm trying to look at this through is to alleviate students that might look at our programming and see the term health or health and society. And so I would make the, I have some concerns with this one as well. The name of the embedded certificate is very general, health and society, which isn't much different than health and community wellness, which is a degree program we have, or social and behavioral health, which is another degree program that we have. It in my mind, in talking with colleagues in my area, we believe that this is a general term and that it appears duplicative for students. And I recognize this is only for sociology students, but when students read about the area of health and society, they might be attracted to that. And so the rationale states, for example, it says that sociology students appreciate the study of health and medicine from a sociological perspective. Perhaps a simple solution would just be retitling the certificate to something just like that. For example, sociological aspects or sociological dimensions of health, something like that. The rationale also states that students will gain a quote unquote recognized area of expertise by adding the certificate to their program of study. It was unclear in the rationale with the justification of who the certificate will be recognized by or what particular expertise it would provide. And so I'm concerned about, similarly from above, the language that, and ultimately I believe the goal or what I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to make is that we want to, eliminate any potential duplication of existing programs, minimize confusion for students, specifically students that are interested in distinct areas of health and or wellness.
Okay, thank you. Emily.
Hi, everyone. As I mentioned for the anthropology certificate, since this is an embedded certificate within the sociology major that will only be being taken by sociology majors, it would be redundant to say that they have a sociology major with an embedded certificate in sociological approaches to health. And so because this is already sort of under the umbrella of sociology, this sociology program does not believe that we need to reiterate the name, like the terminology of sociology again in the title of the certificate. We already have 4 other embedded certificates in sociology that passed a couple of years ago, and they were much less contentious than things have been recently. And this is mirroring the naming of those. So it's following established naming conventions in the sociology program. As to the areas of expertise, there is no accrediting body that accredits people for having taken sociology classes on health. But having taken the courses that are included in the certificate, they could, the students would be able to claim that within the context of their sociology major, that they have a particular focus on health-related topics. And I appreciate Dr. Moser's suggestion that this needs to be talked about collaboratively, but I don't think that the need for a collaborative discussion should preclude us from being able to add this certificate for our majors. Our majors are already taking these courses, which all already are on the books, and this will just be recognizing that they have sort of developed this particular expertise in this area of sociology, similar to what we're already doing for students concentrating in other areas within sociology.
Bridget.
Yeah, so I just want to ask Emily real quick. You had mentioned that they would have expertise developed in the area of health topics as well. Can you expand on what those health topics are that they actually would develop expertise in?
So the certificate contains 5 courses, one of which is Intro to Sociology. And this is exactly the same as all of our other certificates, which had previously passed Faculty Senate. And the other courses are Medical Sociology, Sociology of Global Health, Sociology of Mental Health, and then Death, Grief, and Caring. And so I can talk a little bit about those, but I'm not actually a sociologist of health. But so it will give them sort of a broad overview of different topics within health. And again, this is only for sociology majors. And typically sociology majors I'm sorry, I'm receiving a package at like the exact worst time. Typically, sociology majors, in our experience, join the major and then begin to look into our certificates. And so I think it is extremely unlikely that anyone is going to sort of like I don't even think the students know about the certificates until they have joined the major. And so I don't see this causing a lot of confusion for students when they're selecting their major.
Brian, I see your hand is still raised. Do you have a follow-up or, okay, you're fine. Well, seeing no further discussion, we may be ready for a vote. So I guess I'll call for the poll. Colleen? So we're voting on the embedded certificate in health and society. And as soon as we get the results, Colleen can share them.
I'm going to let this one run about 30 seconds too. It seems to
Okay.
be the average time. All right, it approved.
Okay, very good. Similar margins, 79% yes, 17% no, 4% abstain. Okay, back to Rosemary for the next course proposal.
Yes, and we'll take the next two items as a block. So this is coming from the Department of English, Film, Language, and Performing Arts, and this is to add a new standalone certificate in global languages and cultures. This is open to students from various majors, and the certificate is focused on connecting the study of languages and cultures to other disciplines and to professional careers. The course, FORL 3000, is a course that will serve as the summative experience for students in this certificate.
Well, thank you. Any discussion? This may be one of our few relatively straightforward items. I think we're probably ready to go ahead to the vote. So Colleen will release the poll on that. So the question is, do you approve the addition of the standalone certificate in global languages and cultures and the addition of FORL 3000 global languages and cultures colloquium as a block?
All right, it passes.
Very good. Okay, back to Rosemary again with a proposal from the College of Education.
Yes, this is a modification to the BSED in special education. It deactivates the general curriculum track within the major. This is one of two tracks within the major, and there are no students currently enrolled in this particular track. It also replaces one course, so it replaces SPED 4722 with SPED 4713.
Very good. Any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, I think we're ready to move to a vote. Do you approve the modifications to the special education BSED?
Passes.
Very good. And Rosemary, now I think you're going to introduce a proposal for a new course from Mass Communications.
Yes, this is from the Department of Mass Communications, COM 4457 Global Media. This is a course that has previously been taught several times as a special topics course, so they're just trying to permanently add it to the catalog.
Any discussion of this? Well,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
I had a question. So I was just wondering if somebody from the department or the department representative could give us a little bit of an overview of how the proposal proceeded through faculty governance, how it came to the UPC and then forward. Specifically, I'm kind of interested in whether, since the Mass Comm department is now or currently a standalone entity, whether there was any effort made to approach other existing faculty governance entities, especially executive committees that are part of the usual proposal process, whether they could collaborate in approving and vetting this proposal. So, and just as a follow-up, if there was no effort made, I would be kind of curious, why not?
Okay, I know we have at least 2 representatives of Mass Comm here. Our faculty senator from Mass Comm, Patrick Hadley, and the department chair, Brad Yates. Would one of you like to speak to Patrick's question or comment?
Dan, this is Patrick. Since Brad is on the call, I will defer to him to give feedback to the question.
Okay, very good. Brad?
So the proposal came through from the faculty member, and we have a curriculum advisory committee that is made up of our faculty members in the department, and it was scrutinized for the usual process, and then it went to the chair level for approval. Given that the department is not associated with a college at this point, the request went to the provost office for this to custom route to UPC, given that UPC is the most stringent review of curriculum that comes through, to my understanding. And with the provost office approval, it went to the UPC, and then through the UPC discussion, it was approved, and then it now is at Senate.
Okay, well, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Patrick, or?
Yeah, so I guess my question was regarding the fact that this process then in essence, I don't know if shortcuts is the right word, but certainly skips some entities of curricular review, such as an executive committee that is usually available or that is usually involved in proposals coming from other colleges. So yeah, that was the second part of my question earlier, whether, you know, since you're clearly aware of that, being a long-term veteran of faculty governance here, whether, you know, knowing that that's usually involved in proposal reviews, whether, since this is kind of an unprecedented situation anyways, whether there was any conversation or outreach to say, you know, could we, for example, with our former colleagues in CAUSE, who are now in CACSI, have a collaboration where their executive committee could review this so that we continue to follow and respect parity in curricular review and faculty governance?
So the thinking was that the School of Nursing has a model where their faculty bring it forth, and then there's a curriculum committee there, and then it goes to their dean, and then it goes to UPC or GPC respectively. And so that was the thinking in the process here. Also, not to confuse University College, which we are listed under in Banner just for the sake of software movement functionality. And so that was the reasoning. But again, I consulted with the provost office, given that the directive was for this department in its current state, reports directly to the provost office. So in my mind, I was reaching out to what would have been a college level although it technically is the provost level. So by no means were we trying to skirt around scrutiny in any fashion. Definitely respect that those processes have been in place. We are in an odd position. But again, I do think that the UPC, given my brief experience on it, is usually quite strict and stringent as far as review, and appreciate all the feedback that the colleagues provided and have provided over the years with that. So, but that was the thinking, not in any way trying to move away from what is standard, but looking at a model that does exist on campus, recognizing we're not officially named school versus department.
I appreciate that. I guess my concern, and I don't want to sound like I'm singling out your proposal at all, or this process. And my concern, and I would really appreciate hearing from perhaps other senators or colleagues here, is that as departments are moved out of colleges and turned into schools, in sort of this larger process of reorganization in academia, in our academic units, that we really have kind of a changing approach to faculty governance, where from some units, especially from the schools then, and Mass Comm is not even a school yet, proposals are moved through different entities than elsewhere. So for example, if a proposal from a CACSI department or program comes to the executive committee, it's a level of review from their peers that then precedes UPC. And clearly that's not something that happened, but it was then approved by the provost to move to UPC directly. So I guess my concern is about the level of higher administrative involvement in something that is really just more by our practices a faculty governance prerogative. So I suppose my concern here is one really also about precedent. It's not at all a concern about your proposal in particular.
Yeah, oh, thanks. So we have several people who want to join the conversation. So I think I'll move through that list, and then I'll circle back to Mass Comm a little bit later to see if either Brad or Patrick Hadley, that is, would have a follow-up, and then eventually we can make our way back to others who may want to speak on that as well. But let's give a few people the chance to speak. So we'll start with Mark Fawcett. Mark.
This issue was brought up at the executive committee meeting earlier this week. The fact that Mass Comm is not currently in a college, but is sort of set off by itself, should not prevent the Department of Mass Communications from controlling its curriculum. The process is going through not our usual standard process, but it is going through a process that's generated by the faculty, started by the faculty, controlled by the faculty. It's not the same process, but we still should allow our colleagues in the Department of Mass Communications to suggest and control their own curriculum.
Thank you. Yvonne.
Yes, thank you. I agree, and it is not in any way a reflection on the proposal and the merit of the proposal, not at all. But I do agree somewhat with Patrick when what he's saying about the process. And I understand the logic of what Mark just said, that the fact that they are not a school should not prevent them. However, precisely because they are in a transition, let's say, or in somewhat of a limbo, I think it would have been best practice to be even more caution and still present it to the executive committee of what would have been their college, where they were previously. So I think maybe that was a step that could have been taken. No one says you legally had to take it, But in the spirit of trying to continue in fairness and governance and equity, etc., that would have been a wise move, in my opinion.
Okay. Nick Sterling.
So echoing what Mark said, this exact conversation also came up in UPC. And so there were some questions because, you know, the steps of college curriculum and dean were not part of this process. You know, this proposal is a very straightforward one, but you know, the explanation, if I recall correctly, was that, well, along the lines of what Brad said, is that this is kind of following the model of what School of Nursing does. I think that ultimately having some broader guidance on these transitory, you know, as MassCom is an unaffiliated department right now, just how this would be handled from the faculty governance perspective, you know, and echoing what everyone else has said, that has absolutely nothing to do with this proposal. But we at UPC, I believe, were largely satisfied with the reasoning that was described by Brad, by Jill Drake. So,
Bob Kilpatrick.
Thanks, Dan. I just have a couple questions for maybe they're for Brad, maybe they're for somebody representative from the administration. I'm just curious to know, along the lines of the discussion we're having, what the current status is of the potential transition to school status for mass communications. So that's question number one. If we can get an update on that. And question number two is, what is the process for a program that wishes to seek out school status?
Yeah, the second question in particular may be beyond the capacity of MassCom to answer, but Brad, I'll let you weigh in, especially for that first point if you want, or second, and then I'll move to Shelley right after that. Brad?
So the current status of the formal proposal is that it is being drafted. It will be worked on more fully next week in hopes of having a full draft to send to the department here for feedback. The goal is to prepare the final draft so that it goes to the appropriate entities. It will be presented, I will present it to Provost Preston, and then follow his lead as far as where it's distributed. In terms of the process, as it was stated in, I think, one of the open forums, the school proposal, this is the first time that we've had this in this way. Someone can correct me, and I think Colleen had done some research about the School of Nursing, so I apologize if I have facts incorrect. The goal was to create a model for others to use in the future to create schools. And that is what I was tasked to do, was to help lead this and preparing the actual proposal in hopes that it's a model for specific steps for future endeavors. And I, of course, yield to Provost Preston and AVP Drake, and I'm not sure if AVP Jenks is on the call, but for further clarification for that.
Okay, thank you. I know we're going to hear from the provost a little bit later in the meeting, but if Dr. Preston, if you want to weigh in with an answer to this specific question from Dr. Kilpatrick, or if Jill Drake is able to speak to that as well, does anyone want to, would either of you like to answer that question?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Excellent question, Dr. Kilpatrick, and I think Dr. Yates answered this well. I'm Happy to be with you all. And as you all know, this is the first week for me, so I am learning quite a lot. Happy to have collaborated extensively across the last month with Dr. Jenks and coming up to speed on a lot of this. So I will get back with you on specifics of process for how we're going to solicit input for new departments, new schools, new colleges, and long-term. And I'm committed to working through shared governance and working with the faculty on what works well there. In this week, I have been meeting with each of the deans, and my message to them is that I believe in working with the faculty and seeing what opportunities that we have. And so if we have programs that are growing and we need new administrative structures to help them and serve students best, then I'm very open to good ideas and creating structures that make sense to benefit students. Dr. Drake, if you've got anything to add historically about the MassCom school or anything else, I welcome your thoughts as well.
I was not primarily involved with the discussion around the school. Dr. Yates has provided the most up-to-date information on the plans, and so I cannot add additional information with respect to the school. I can say that I was the official in the Provost's office that approved the proposal for the special topics course to then be declared a regular course. This is standard, as everyone has said. The proposal is standard and of merit, and really didn't have any need for me to not move it forward because it wasn't under any. It is an independent department, which is something we don't normally have. It did not follow the normal pathways of a dependent department. So as an independent department, its approvals will follow that of a school. And because it's in limbo, the only way to allow it to follow the approval level processes that a school would, we had to manipulate Curriculog. But should the plans for it to become a school move forward, it will be similar to nursing, where departments external or units external to that school do not review the curriculum. So I had to manipulate our approval system to mirror that of a school, which is the way an independent department's approval levels are. And so it is correct. It is not similar to dependent departments because it is not a dependent department. Thank you.
Well, thank you. One of the questions I think that is at issue here is this question of precedent. And as Dr. Yates conceded, there is a little bit of a difference between what's happening now and what happened 10 years ago with the creation of the School of Nursing. And I think our executive secretary, Colleen, is going to be able to speak a little bit to the historical research that she was able to do there. Colleen?
Yeah, so over the course of the semester, there's been some questions that have come up in executive committee about how a school is formed, what the process is, what the difference between a school and a college is. So I was asked to do a little research on the School of Nursing because this was the last school that was created at UWG out of a department. So originally, nursing, most of you probably know, but some of you may not, nursing was a department within the College of Arts and Sciences. So I did a little research back in the archives of the Senate agendas and the Senate minutes. And what I found was that the Department of Nursing was listed as a department within the College of Arts and Sciences throughout the year that the transition, I guess, was working or behind the scenes taking place. So as far up as July of 2009, Senate agendas, I have been able to find a Department of Nursing or Department of Nursing items. So there was nothing about a School of Nursing being created that went through Faculty Senate. And I think the reason why is because the creation, and this is something that's a conversation that's been happening as early as August, that a reorganization or the creation of schools or the creation of departments, restructuring like that falls under the purview of the president and I guess maybe the provost, although I'm not sure about the provost part because, you know, I'm sort of a newbie about this, but it falls under at least the purview of the president. And then the curriculum is under the purview of faculty. So this isn't just university, but it's also USG. So the creation of the School of Nursing did not come through Faculty Senate as an approval, something that was approved by Faculty Senate, probably because of that, or definitely because of that. Just don't kill me on the wording. But what I did find was the transition itself, where you see it show up, is where the bylaws are amended. And that's where we see it showing up in the minutes, is where the bylaws and the handbook and everything are amended to add the School of Nursing into Faculty Senate language and other things within policies and procedures. So that's where we see it show up, and those types of things were approved by the Senate. And so you see the Department of Nursing show up in July 2009 in the Senate, but then you see in the following semester, which would be the fall of 2009, then it's being listed as items coming from the School of Nursing. So the way that it worked with nursing was it stayed within the College of Arts and Sciences until it became a school. So that is a different situation than what we have here. And that's what I've been able to find.
Well, thank you. Yes, that was helpful. I think the existence of a department that is not yet a school that's reporting directly to the provost is something that is a point that people have raised in this discussion, and so I think it's good to get some historical research on that. Shelley.
Sorry, having trouble unmuting. Thank you. I just had a couple of quick questions or one quick question and a comment, and that is it seems to me that the procedure that most departments and programs have to go through for curriculum is that they get a diversity of faculty opinion by going through the many different committees, the college committee, the department committee, the college committee. And that this, at least with the Tanner School of Nursing, there's 32 full-time faculty opposed to 15 full-time faculty in the Department of Mass Communications. The question I have is why was, in looking at curricula, why was the course forced approved when it got to UPC? It seems that Whitney Brand approved it in Mount Rosemary.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It was because of the custom routing that Curriculog, we couldn't do the approval in the normal way. And so we had to reach out to Whitney Brand to help that's why it was routed that way. And I did speak with her about it, but once it had been rerouted, it wasn't possible to change it, I guess. So that's why I went and put in the approval, and then she went and had to kind of override it for me to send it to the Senate.
Thank you.
Dina.
The only thing I just wanted to point out really briefly too, it seems like we've got two different issues. We've got one, which is this proposal, and we're talking about processes and procedures in the context. And I think that's very important, but that may need to take place under new business. So my basic move here is to say, are we ready to call the question and move to a vote on this proposal? So thank you for your time.
Well, we do have that support for a vote here. Would anyone from MassCom like to speak again before we move toward a vote? Seeing no one, does anyone else want to weigh in on this before we move to a vote? I think we're ready for a vote. So Colleen is going to run the poll. So do you approve the addition of Communication 4457 Global Media?
I'm going to let this one run for 30 like last. Passes.
Very good. Yes, 74% yes, 13% no, and 13% abstain. Thank you. Okay, and back to Rosemary. Proposals from University College regarding a couple of XIDS courses slated for deletion.
Yes, and we're going to take these as a block. This is the deletion of 2 core courses that are no longer offered. The first one, XIDS 1004, this was an Area B1 course. It has not been taught since fall 2013. The second one, XIDS 2201, a Core D1 course. This has been replaced at the USG level by ISCI 2001 and ISCI 2002.
Any comments, questions regarding this? Seeing none, I think we're probably ready to move toward a vote.
Passes.
Okay, very good. And finally, Rosemary, I think you have an information item for us.
That's right. This is for the minor in history, a modification which was made to designate the minor in history as fully online optional.
Well, thank you. Seeing no questions about that, I think we're probably ready to move to APC with Dr. McHenry Smith. Emily?
All right. Hi again. So as many of you likely know, this semester, the withdrawal date was pushed back to November 27th due to COVID-related emergencies. The APC has received some feedback from faculty on this. And so this is not about the general withdrawal deadline, but about if it were to be modified again next semester because of the ongoing situation with COVID. Where in general, faculty support, or what the APC has found is that faculty support the flexibility of an extended withdrawal deadline, but believe that having the withdrawal deadline at the very end of the semester, like it was this semester with the November 27th deadline, is too late. And so for the spring semester, the APC has made 3 recommendations. That the withdrawal deadline be somewhat earlier, such as after 60 to 75% of the semester has passed. So it's the first recommendation. The second is that the withdrawal deadline does not immediately precede the beginning of the final exams period, but that there be some sort of gap in between. And then the third recommendation is that the spring 2021 withdrawal deadline be decided prior to the start of classes. So that's what this is.
Okay, well, thank you. So this is an item that we need to vote on. We're going to decide as Faculty Senate whether we want to endorse the APC recommendation regarding the spring 2021 withdrawal deadline. Any questions, comments, discussion? Anyone want to weigh in on this before we proceed to a vote?
Dan, can I also note very briefly that we are only attempting to address the withdrawal deadline for classes that go for the full semester, because no one on the committee understood how 8-week classes work well enough to speak to them and their withdrawal deadlines.
Okay, that sounds good. Shelley.
If I may ask that when the late withdrawal deadline was set for November 27th, I think we didn't think about the fact that there might be some last minute students trying to last minute withdraw and having holds and not being able to contact anyone in enrollment services to help them with those holds because the offices were closed. So can I just ask that in addition to this, that when we set those new deadlines, if we do set them, that they happen when the registrar's office and the enrollment services offices are open? Thanks.
Very good. Any other comments, discussion points, questions? Seeing none, I think we are probably ready to move to a vote. So approve the spring 2021 withdrawal deadline recommendation from APC regarding the 3 points that Emily mentioned.
Passes.
Okay. Very good. Yes, overwhelming support for that. Well, at this point, we're going to move to announcements. We have several speakers, and then eventually we'll get to the provost. But first, regarding the academic calendar for this coming academic year, 2021-2022, Dr. Jill Drake will speak to that.
Thank you. You will get a series of updates as we're working on this. So I just wanted to get you in early on what we're working on. Earlier this summer, the provost asked me to look and see if we could do something to shorten our calendar, as we have one of the longest calendars in the USG, as you probably know. Part of the reason why we have one of the longest calendars in the USG is because we have taken the full week for Thanksgiving in the past, and we have the fall break, and we start on a Wednesday, which just that midweek cycle kicks into the following week. So in looking at all of that, I believe that I have come up with a solution that has minimal changes to you all's academic calendar, to the academic calendar for UWG. And what that entails, it does entail for the fall, as we did this semester, so you have a taste of it, is that we do have classes on Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving break moving forward. And we do not have the fall break, but it will allow the fall semester to start a week later. So rather than starting on the 18th, the 11th, as is currently scheduled, it'll allow us to start on the 18th, 7 full days later. The resolution will be to this issue and will be also presented to you at a later date, is that Monday only classes will need to be extended 10 minutes. Only Monday only classes. All other classes will remain the same. We'll have 15 weeks of the semester, 15 weeks of instruction, an exam week, everything. By that one change, and again, I've got to work on the exam schedule because the exams will run from Tuesday through Friday. And so that little kink I'm still working out will save us a week. And it'll also, for the spring semester, because we're starting in January, we're not kicking that back, but the spring semester, the week is saved at the end of the semester, which gives you a little bit more time between Maymester and the end of the semester, which has been a problem for getting grades, and they're jumping right into Maymester and all of that. So I think I'm thrilled about the solution. And there are 77 classes that will be modified. Many of them are one day only class. I mean, they are all are one day only classes. So 10 more minutes is not even going to be that big of a deal. And even for those classes, if they wanted to use that 15th week for an exam, they could, rather than, it being, for instruction, that rather than an exam, they could. So I did want to have a nice, wonderful chart for you with all those things, but I need to get the exam schedule worked out because that is also shifting. And once I have the exam schedule worked out, I'll come back to you with all the bells and whistles and graphics. Okay?
Well, thank you, Jill. I know 2 months ago, the Faculty Senate voted overwhelmingly in support of shortening the spring semester. And of course, that wasn't able to happen. So I assume, given that strong sentiment behind the idea of shortening the semester, that your efforts will be appreciated. I already see several people in the comments expressing appreciation. I don't see any discussion at this point, any questions. So I think, unless you have something more to tell us, we very much appreciate that. Thank you, Jill. And I think we'll move to the next announcement, which is from Dr. Kathy Jenks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to provide everyone an update on where we are in implementing a new software tool that we certainly hope is going to make everyone's life a lot easier moving forward for faculty activity reporting, which we do every year, which culminates into a very nice, extensive report of all of the accomplishments and contributions to student, faculty, campus life that faculty produce every single year. Some of the work that I see come through my office basically just amazes me. Y'all do some fascinating work. But in the past, for those of you who may be new, we used a tool that was a database kind of built by our former Deputy Provost, John Anderson. And the database got to the point where we really couldn't expand the way we needed to meet the expectations for SAC-COC, which were continuously being revised. So we went with Excel template, a Band-Aid approach at best, to try and collect all, again, the activities, service, scholarship, teaching related that everyone was doing during the year. And it just became a very overwhelming and cumbersome process. We were able to produce the report that we needed, but is definitely not the best approach. And people really wanted a software solution similar to Digital Measures, which the Richards College of Business was using, or TK20, which the College of Education was using. So back in spring of 2017, yes, it was that long ago, we began discussions on, how to best approach acquiring something better, more flexible, definitely more user-friendly. And we, at that time, also had a new VP for ITS and established the IT steering board. So there was a new process we had to go through. Went through that particular process. They basically, Philip Hand, did a lot of the background work on making sure, what was in the market, price points, setting up vendor demos, etc. Worked closely with the deans, had the deans appoint representatives from their colleges, from all colleges, because we didn't know what we were going to end up with. And I was actually searching for 2 software solutions at the same time. In spring of 2018, we had our initial demos. After that was the short list. We did open campus demos and surveys, getting feedback from anyone who was able to attend. In fall of 18 and spring of 19. Summer of 19, we did pick Faculty 180 by Interfolio, again, due to the feedback we received from everyone in attendance, and ultimately price, to be frank. The Faculty IT Committee was informed of the progress of implementation fall of 19. And then spring of 20, the entire project was put on the back burner because I was dealing with the SAC-COC 5th year interim report. But as soon as that, and of course, the weekend that report was turned in, COVID hit. So we've had stumblings along, but we are finally to the point where we are ready to kind of roll out the pilot of faculty activity reporting in this tool for calendar year 2020. I do want to give accolades before I jump into just a very short overview of what the platform looks like. You will be receiving more information from your department chairs. But we had several phases of soft launches. We have had the implementation team has changed based on reorg, et cetera. But I wanted to give out many thanks to the following people who have been instrumental, and I hope I do not leave anyone off. You'll know how this goes. Angela Nsinga, Casey McGuire, Don Neely, Amy Cuomo, Jennifer Edelman, Brent Hydorn, Duke Biber, Martin McPhail, Farouk Khan, Ann Gauker, Ryan Courier, Henry Zott, Lisa Gazan, Vanessa Griffin, Kathy Barrett, David Mitchell, Andrea Stanfield, Craig Schroer, Angela Pasha, Miriam Nauenberg, I hope I got that right, I'm sorry if I didn't, Heather Bono, Beiruz Sethna, Laura Phillips, Sharmistha Basudat, Ann Barnhart, Delene Volkert, Chapman Rackaway, Paul Rutledge, Stacy Boyd, Nancy Lott, Brent Hydorn, Brad Yates, Denise Overfield, and Greg Payne. All of these people have worked in the system, kind of been beta testers, providing us with valuable feedback with our implementation partner at Interfolio in order to really make the customizations play out to where we can capture discipline-specific activities. And so what I wanted to do is just give you all a quick overview of the product itself in case you have not seen it. And then I also have some of the faculty that I listed are going to give you their experience working in the platform. And then I'll give you some deadlines. So is it okay for me to share my screen?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Okay. So when I click share, it is not giving me my tabs. Can anyone help me? Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be, I'm going to try this. Hold on one second.
Kathy, it's
Yes.
Angela. Earlier, I had to close everything else because I also have to share my screen in a moment. Had to kind of close everything else and then just pop up that one screen I wanted to share. I don't know if that's going to be possible for you, but I just wanted to share that I was on earlier with Colleen. Sorry.
It did. Actually, what you just said completely worked. Thank you. They're constantly updating these apps. It changes every time I use it. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see. Can everyone see okay? I always have to adjust the screen size.
It looks good.
Okay, so when the system is in OneLogin. So it's very easy. It should show up in your frequently used apps. It'll say Interfolio. It's a little blue icon, and you'll click on it and we'll take you to your home page. Actually, I go ahead and talk about dates now. The some colleges, specifically in departments, CACSI and Mass Communications and the library have decided to use the platform to have faculty submit their self-evaluations in order to help manage the workload for chairs during this upcoming evaluation season. Those for CACSI, that due date is January the 19th. MassComm, I don't know that Dr. Yates has provided a date. He may have to his faculty, but I don't know their particular deadline yet. And same for Ingram Library, but I assume it would be sometime in January or early February. So for those individuals, the activity reporting will actually give them a task that is in red here in red with a due date, and you'll just click the link and it'll take you exactly to everything that you need to fill out, so you don't have to hunt and peck and look around the system. But the system is very easy to use. Any activity, you can do a quick add here, and all of the different activity sections will pop up, and you just choose the one that you want, click go, and it takes you right to that particular section. And for those early beta testers, the current build looks a lot different than what you may have worked in if you have not been in the system in the past few weeks. You can also import all of your scholarly contributions automatically from Google Scholar or through BibTeX and Web of Science. Over on the left-hand navigation bar, there will be an announcements and a help section. We have built out a web page on the Provost website. Can you see this? Did it flip, or is it still on the?
Yes.
Enterprise?
On the Faculty 180 Go West.
Yes. Thank you. It's hard to navigate when you can't see what other people can see. So this is going to go underneath systems. UCM just hasn't added it yet. So it will be right where Concourse, Curriculog, and Reserve West are, in case you are not in one login or don't want to go through one login. The login here will take you to the one login link, and then you can click through from there. We have a PDF crosswalk that should be here. Yes, and I want to give a special shout out to Clint Samples for making this very pretty, and Sharmistha for helping me actually crosswalk the faculty handbook sections to all of the sections in Interfolio and where you would enter your activities. Please note that some of these are broad, and depending on the exact type of activity the faculty member engaged in, the college, because all of your work for promotion and tenure will be housed in this one system, which is going to make life a lot easier for those of going up for a third-year review and PNT in the near future, not having to scramble to find all your stuff. It will all be in one spot. But please follow the guidance provided by your college regarding where, if there's this particular place where they would rather you enter an activity, that's fine. I know that College of Ed does mentoring sessions with all faculty in their first, second, and third years, making sure that they're kind of following the College of Ed approach to promotion and tenure and having a successful bid for a PNT. So we have this created. We have the web page, and another great special shout out to Martin McPhail, who actually walked through how he entered his activities in the platform, videoed the whole thing with the voiceover, and then Clint Samples came in and did the video edits and kind of zoomed in on each of the different aspects of to kind of help people enter their activities that way. So back to the platform, I don't want to take up too much time. You will have a profile section, and a lot of this may be pre-populated based on what is in Banner. Education will be pre-populated based on what is in Suzanne Garrett's faculty credentialing database. But the rest of it, you can enter and complete your profile. When you go to enter activities, you can enter them at any time. You don't have to enter them only during the workflow, when the workflow opens. And sorry, either their system or my system is running really slowly. So courses taught are pulled from Banner. Other teaching activities is anything related to teaching that is not taught, captured in courses taught. We did also add the faculty handbook references under the About This section for each section, again, to help as a guide when first working in the system. One other thing I did want to say about courses taught, I obviously have not been in the classroom in a while, and so I don't have any teaching, but for those who will have teaching, you can attach your syllabi, you can attach peer evaluations, you can attach any sort of documents that you feel are kind of evidence of maybe your course was service learning related or incorporated another high impact practice. All of that can be captured in the teaching section, again, which makes it easy with all your documentation being in one place. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but we do have a place for curriculum development. So if you did create courses, work on new programs, anything like that, faculty-directed student research and individual student work. That could be anything from posters, presentation, paper, exit paper, thesis, dissertation, all of that would be captured there. There's a grant section, research for those who do field research or lab research, and you want to show the amount of time and what you have been working on. Maybe it hasn't culminated into a draft of a paper yet, but that has been your activity for the year. Your actual scholarly contributions, creative productions, editorial service. Professional service is really like service to the profession. There's a debate on changing the wording of that. All of this is customizable. Consultation, professional development, which is more if you attended trainings, seminars, institutes, etc., to develop your own skill set, you would record that there. Advising, all your committee work, other institutional service, community service and engagement. And then the activity distribution, reassigned duties, and annual self-eval are all optional, and your department chair would give you direction as to whether or not they would like for you to fill those three pieces out. Other aspects of the platform that I really wanted to point out that are great little features. You can actually, once you get your profile created, you can create a Vita and a bio sketch. So if you are into writing grants and you need to pull something very quickly, if Denise Overfield, who also, this is going to help her, and being able to find faculty with specific expertise, she'll be able to run reports. If she gets a last minute RFP, it's like, oh, I need to find, this would be great for somebody who has expertise in X, whatever X is. And then you need to produce some stuff really quickly. You can generate a bio sketch very quickly. The other thing that is neat about it is it has a Find Colleagues button. And one of the conversations that I've heard has been happening on campus a lot is collaborating kind of across our silos. And the Find Colleagues button will actually search the database once faculty have been entering all their information and match people based on maybe you published in the same journal, you have keywords that you've identified that are your teaching interests, your research interests, your service interests. And then those people can connect and see if there might be a potential collaboration there, which will also help ORSP, again, when RFPs come through, to be able to match people up in that way. As I know a lot of times, and when I was first starting out many years ago, Joey Smith in economics actually was studying the economic aspect of something that I was studying, but I had no idea who he was. So that would have come in really handy many, many years ago. The other pieces are just administration. But as I mentioned, it is completely customizable, but we are still working on a lot of the customizations. One of the most recent ones that I did was for mass communications. And I asked Dion Kay if he might join us this afternoon and kind of talk about the flexibility and customizability of the system. And he sent me this, which I'll show on the screen, but then read to you. That as filmmakers, we have some very specific needs for logging our creative scholarship, since there are various forms and modes within the medium, from traditional narrative filmmaking to art gallery work and video installations. Many forms of filmmaking also rely heavily on distributed authorship, and we needed a way to account for that as well. Lastly, regarding the all-important publication element, different types of work require different mechanisms for distribution, publication, and peer review. And we needed this tool to serve us in that respect. So what we did was we worked with our implementation consultant, Cynthia, and after about 15-minute overview of the platform and its objectives and 25 minutes of working with Cynthia, they have a custom page that allows them to log everything that they need in a way that's logical, efficient, and discipline specific. So we are currently, I have meetings set up over the course of the next couple of weeks, and this will continue to be refined as people work in it. Like I said, this is going to be the pilot run. I guarantee you there will be things you see that you're going to want to have added, or you're going to need to have added to the platform in order for, to really capture the activities that you do in your disciplines. The reports functionality is really going to help chairs manage reviewing workload, and if they're ever asked for, how many publications or who's on what committee or any of that sort of stuff, is just a very easy way to kind of manage reporting burden. It also does capture specialized accreditation reporting. So we did put some for mass communications, they have some fields in here that are going to capture for their accreditation reports, AACSB as well. But I will note, business faculty, you all are still going to be working in digital measures until after your AACSB accreditation visit in 2021. And I did get that confirmation from Dean McIntyre earlier this week. So this doesn't necessarily apply to you for calendar year 2020. And College of Ed, you all be working in it more in February, but again, Dean Hoff and department chairs should be providing more information to you about that. So I did think that we had a couple of faculty who were going to share their experience kind of testing and working in this system. Dan, do you want to call on? Oh, Amy is here. I see Amy. Hi, Amy.
How are you? I don't have a lot to say. I found it fairly simple, and I was really glad to hear that you're working on the feedback to provide the specifications that people need for their very, very specific disciplines. That was my overall concern. And also, you were very helpful in getting me on, and I'm hoping that maybe someone from CTL, or not to put more work on their plate, or some group will be available for faculty when they are having difficulties manipulating a new tool.
That would basically, we're going to try and create super users in each of the colleges. And so for CACSI, right now, that's Sharmistha, although she might want to say, no, that's not me. As of right now, she is the most knowledgeable. And I am certainly here for if anyone has any questions or any issues whatsoever. You also will have, I'm glad you bring that up. It's a great point and a great question. Interfolio, one of the other selling points about the product is that it has 24/7 customer service available directly for faculty. So you don't have to come through me. So if you are up at 2 a.m. because you can't sleep and you decide you want to work in the platform and you're having an issue with something, Scholar Services is available. And they also have, since I am still sharing my screen, they're on the Interfolio website, they have help for faculty users and Faculty 180. And so this is overviews and videos and job aids and kind of walkthroughs for most of the sticking points that faculty would have.
Thank you.
So that is available to people as well.
Right.
Kathy, Lisa is available to talk about her experiences with the first generation versus the most modified generation. So Lisa, all yours.
Hey, I just want to say that this is an incredibly user-friendly system, and it's so welcome. Having been a department chair for years, we've been longing for this for at least 10 years. It's going to make everybody's job so much easier. I worked a little bit on helping refine a research category, and I think that just goes to show that there's, that things can get tweaked along the way, and if people have issues with the way the categories are laid out, it is a work in progress. And thank you so much for doing this. This has been years in the making. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Sharmista, was there anyone else? I don't know if Casey was able to make it.
No, this is good. And I just wanted to say that I have played with the platform. And again, for someone like me who is tech-phobic a bit, it is very, very user-friendly. Just a few clicks here and there. It's very intuitive. You guys run into problems. Again, we'll start with the CAXI faculty, but if y'all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll walk y'all through it. And, again, Kathy, you may call me a super user at some point to help the other colleges as well. Thank you for doing it. I love it both from a faculty perspective as well as a former chair. I really think it will make all their lives much, much simpler.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, are there any other questions? Anything else that you want to ask Kathy while she's here with us? Yes, I see Emily.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think this may be a naive question, but what is the difference between Interfolio and Faculty 180?
It's not a naive question at all. It's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. So actually, Interfolio is a larger company. Faculty 180 started out literally just as Faculty 180 as its own standalone platform, and it was bought out by Interfolio. Interfolio, so if you do happen to go to their main webpage, they offer several modules. They are a company that was built by faculty for faculty. Another reason why this product stood out among the others. The different modules, those of you who are familiar with MLA uses the Interfolio hiring piece for their job postings for faculty. So some of you may have heard of Interfolio through that. That's sort of the initiation is what they call it, it's hire to retire. So it's the faculty life cycle. They have a hiring module that then all of that information, once the person is hired, directly feeds over into the faculty activity reporting and faculty information module. They also have a review, promotion, and tenure module, excuse me, that you can push all of your FAR, Faculty 180 documents directly into a promotion and tenure review module where reviewers would actually go in, your stuff is already there. Then they also do post-tenure review, and then they have one for just maintenance on the back end, and then retiring faculty and just kind of creating that life cycle and maintenance of everything that faculty are doing. So Interfolio is kind of the parent company or the main company, and then Faculty 180 is the particular faculty activity reporting module that we're using. Does that clarify?
Yes, that was a huge help. Thank you.
No, you are welcome.
Anything else before we move to the next announcement? Well, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate this. This was very helpful.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
The next announcement is from Dr. Angela Nsinga on behalf of GEAC, the General Education Assessment Committee. Angela?
You're
Looks like
muted.
she's
Yeah,
muted.
Angela, you may be muted.
Wouldn't that be nice if you could mute me always? In any case, I'll start again. Sorry. It's like I said, it's really great to see you guys again, so many faces and names, and hear you under Dan's astute leadership and Colleen's support. I come to you today in my capacity as Director of General Education Assessment to do my annual reportage as agreed upon by one of our foundational documents we voted upon last year. And I have just a few slides, but I do want to say that this particular presentation is a preamble for a 200-page report that I am almost finished with. I have to add a footnote and do one clear read through. Colleen has agreed to include a link to that report in the minutes, so you can see this in all of its strange and bloated glory, should you wish, and of course always send questions. So today I'm going to give you an overview, if I might do that. And I wanted to start first with what I'm calling a snapshot of the work that we have done at this time. And to do that, I'm going to take you through 3 phases and move you into going onward. And the first phase I was not a part of, but I wanted to honor it and honor its work. So again, in the larger report, you're going to see the work that that particular iteration of Gen Ed assessment folk put together. And it was a largely exploratory phase started by Amanda Thomas, our Director of Assessment. And in that phase, they did a study of the practices already going on extant on our campus. And at the end of that study, they created reports in all core area programs, which we called CAPS later on. And that phase, of course, led into the phase where I began my work with IEA and other groups of faculty on campus. We called this phase the development phase. In this phase, we formed the General Education Assessment Committee, a university committee that was then charged by Dr. Jenks and approved by President Crafton. And of course, during this phase, our job as a committee, this took place over the summer of 2019 in several meetings, was to research and study a successful Gen Ed assessment at other institutions and to get ideas of how we might proceed. We also put together during that summer our Gen Ed assessment administrative structure and the framework. A lot of you have seen those documents. You'll see them again in this longer report, of course. And what we also ended up doing that year is present at the tabletop at the Gen Ed, Gen faculty, excuse me, Gen Ed, not Gen Ed, what's it called? The Gen Fac that August in 2019. And again, we had a forum and an effort to continue educating everyone on what our progress and process was. Phase 3 is where the bulk of the work has occurred thus far. In that phase, we began involving groups on campus, people who teach in the core and or who have expertise in it. We studied our SLOs, our 14 SLOs that govern the core curriculum, the Gen Ed program at the University of West Georgia. As almost everyone in this group and beyond knows, they are quite complex with many components. And then, of course, we turn to the creation of rubrics that would align with those particular SLOs. After that, the work group coordinators, each a part of GIAC, put together their work groups. And in the work groups, there were members representative from all courses, so people who teach these courses, faculty members, my colleagues, were on these, were on the work group committees, and each work group produced in total 26 rubrics and 111 assignments that were all vetted by GIAC. This happened last year, beginning in August, ending in April, if I'm remembering correctly. They did amazing work consistently. While we were doing that work, we were working on another parallel track because both Area A1 and A2 were able in August and September respectively to put together their core area rubrics and to present their assignments, their tools that they would be using for 3 years as we go through this cycle. And that meant that on that other parallel track, we were going through our first 2 periods of baseline collection of student artifacts, written work, 2 norming sessions. We had 35 faculty assessors in all who scored by SLO 2,677 artifacts in our first year. So again, this takes us all the way through summer of 2020, and they've done an impressive amount of work. Going forward, and again, just giving you a snapshot here before I give a bit more detail, our goal is to continue communicating a staggered plan, which I'll speak about in a moment, to continue helping our faculty colleagues work to understand scoring, norming, writing up improvement plans, implementing improvement plans, and then of course reporting yet again after they have seen any difference in student performance post improvement plan. So closing the loop. We're moving again into core redesign, and we hope that our framework will bend and shift. So we hope we've created something that will bend and not break as we move into redesign. And of course, we're looking forward to SACS COC 24. So that gives you a quick snapshot of the work we've done. Again, this is all laid out in that longer report to come at you in the minutes from Colleen. One question we got consistently last year was why now, right? We're looking at a redesign. Why do we have to do this now? And the answer, quite simply and admirably always from Amanda, is because we need a cogent, systematic plan that has not been in place. We've had some excellent gen ed assessments occurring in several areas of the core, but it hasn't been a cogent, systematic plan that has been enacted. And there are 2 particular kind of policies that govern us in this area. And so I wanted to just encapsulate them. Obviously, you see here, I'm first going to SACS COC's revised principles, policy 8.2.B, which I have tattooed somewhere. This is the long form of it. And then of course, I've just given you the brief. Therefore, Gen Ed is a program. So the core areas from A.1 to E equal a program and must conduct assessment just like all other academic programs, and includes reporting out or closing the loop after improvement plan implementation. So again, that gives us the sense of where SACS COC is on the manner. I'll move on to the BOR policy. This is BOR policy manual policy 2.9. Again, the long form is here for you, but here I'm just adding on to what I also said prior to this slide. So therefore, Gen Ed is a program and must conduct assessment just like all other academic programs, and includes reporting out or closing the loop after improvement plan implementation. And faculty and staff at each institution must be involved in developing assessment processes. Further, they must be included, apparently I wanted to emphasize that, in the structure by which these processes are implemented and used for improvement. And from these 2 guiding principles, we began thinking a great deal about what eventually I've come to call this kind of integrative process, wherein faculty are involved at every level of gen ed assessment. We teach the courses, we are familiar with the students, familiar with our curriculum, and we are therefore best positioned in a lot of ways to speak to the way in which assignments that do align with the SLOs should be handled, delivered, and of course scored. Therefore, we had those work groups, and we absolutely focused a great deal on faculty input, good, bad, and ugly, as we went through this process in the creation of the rubrics and the assignments, which we asked each work group member to craft in tandem with their home department, and then to bring back to the work group. Work group then brought it through GIAC. GIAC looked at every single assignment. We met every week for over 2 hours most of the time last year in an effort to get this off the ground carefully but swiftly. And so we really worked hard to include faculty in this process. So that gives you, again, our guiding principles. I've given you what we've done thus far. I do want to move into where we are now, right? So what's happening right now? Something we noticed last year in a moment of, I guess, just graveness was that Becky, Amanda, and I are but 3 people. So I work closely with Amanda Thomas, the Director of Assessment, and Becky DeMaio, the Assessment Coordinator. And I always say that I'm kind of the 2.5. I'm the half. They're the 2, I'm a half, because while I have a lot of experience with qualitative and reportage, I don't yet have a full grasp on the numbers part, which sounds very weird, but Amanda assures me that I'm doing my part and they are doing their data-driven part. Together, then, we make up a small team of women working together to try to assess. And when we started to think about the vast number, the sheer number of artifacts we were to examine, not just to help people norm and score, but then to assure that data analysis occurred carefully and correctly before giving back to work group coordinators to write up their reports. We started to get quite nervous because it simply was not possible. And so we looked at it very carefully and decided, as opposed to skimming across the surface, we would in fact confer with both Kathy Jenks, Jill Drake, and of course at the time Provost Jenks, and speak with them about a staggered plan. This staggered plan, again, is described in detail in the report proper. But what I want to do is just kind of show it to you. This was sent to deans, several chairs, and all PCs in October. So a lot of you have seen this. But essentially, we went for a 3-2-3 model. And that means 3 semesters of baseline collection, 2 semesters of analysis and planning, wherein baseline collection will not occur. In these 2 semesters, we hope that faculty will sit down, examine their data, contextualize it, and of course, write up granular improvement plans with our help when needed. Usually we're going to ask to meet at least once a semester during these 2 semesters. The next 3, so again, 3-2-3, I only went to fall 21 here. Those years, those semesters are implementation and collection. So you would take the improvement plan, implement it, and collect yet again so that you could later report on how the implementation of the improvement plan works, and of course, close that loop. So you can see here then that we're onboarding different parts of the core in different semesters to defray the large number of artifacts, both multiple choice and written artifacts that we have to examine, all of which align with those 14 SLOs. So again, you can see here that we basically parsed the core into its parts and began examining how we could reduce the number of artifacts while still doing good work that will serve as evidence that we are in fact working with a cogent, systematic plan for assessing the core. So that's one thing that's happening now. The other thing happening now is baseline collection and analysis and planning. So I just want to give you this really quickly. A1 and A2, English and math, are now in the analysis and planning phase. They have had their initial baseline collection, and they will have this semester and next to work up improvement plans. Area E, E1, 2, and 4 are in baseline collection phase 2. We collected those as well. We've already done one collection with them, one norming session, one scoring session. They will do one more this semester. And we are onboarding areas B2, E3, poli-sci, and C1 this semester. Assessors will score in all of area E, B2, and C1 in January. And assessors, if you'll remember that framework we've shared, are content faculty chosen by chairs and or PCs. I'm letting CACSI, of course, figure that out on their own and confer with us as needed. So that's where we are right now with our collecting, analysis, and planning. A lot of this involves incredibly collaborative work that we've done over this last year, meeting not just as a committee, but with chairs, deans. We've worked a great deal with department faculty, sat down with them, gone to their department meetings, explained to them this integrative process that we wanted to implement. And again, we've gotten an amazing amount of feedback, a lot of patience, some wonderful sparring sessions in which we talked about how assessment works. We talked about this idea of gen ed as a program. A lot of us tend to think of the core in little tiny pieces that we own, when in fact, those core areas all belong to a gen ed program. And that, of course, has generated a lot of interesting discussion that will continue as we look ahead to the redesign. I just need to thank, just for a moment, if you'll indulge me, I need to thank GIAC, again, faculty who are doing much more than their part when it comes to institutional service. There should be a special place in Interfolio for the work of GIAC members who are steadfast, absolutely dedicated to this, and attended so many meetings that were quite contentious at times, because this is contentious work and it was different work. And I just have to thank them. But I also need to thank you for responding to my emails. When you see a gen ed request for artifacts, I know you probably have a special name for me in your heart, but I appreciate your ability to read through those directions. I've given them to you often in writing and in audio visual format. So a little video that shows you how specifically to upload artifacts after formatting them. I appreciate that work you're doing. It is extra work on us. It is not compensated work. Very, very little of this feels great, except when you stand back and realize that we've done in 16 months what at least one school, according to Amanda, while she was at a conference, hasn't managed to do in 5 years. They haven't even gotten their rubrics done. She didn't tell me the school, but I just need to share that because I wanted to brag not just on the work that GIAC's done, but on you for taking your time to meet with us and being patient as we go through this process. Like I said before, swiftly yet carefully. We wanted to get this off the ground. We want to be in utter compliance in 2024. That is our goal, and we are every day working towards that, but it doesn't happen without you and your patience and willingness to upload artifacts, to score, to come to norming sessions. And this work has been incredibly rewarding for me in the past 16 months. So I just appreciate that. The last thing I'm going to share with you today is our contacts. I just wanted to, again, kind of give you the work group coordinators, their names, and of course, the others, the staff. And I'm kind of in this weird hybrid position, which I always find myself in somehow, being both a faculty member, working with my colleagues closely, and also being privileged to work alongside Becky and Amanda as they teach me and allow me to be part of their team in IEA. The report, again, that expands on everything that I've quickly covered here is going to be linked in the minutes, and I invite you to read through that report, to ask questions, to contact me at any time. I'll be working most of Christmas up until the 18th. Then I'm going to sleep for a while, but I definitely want to hear from you, and of course appreciate everything that I already hear, even when we spar. So thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to give you a snapshot of what we're doing and to talk about the work that we've accomplished during phases 1 through 3, and with a slight glimpse forward into what we're going to be doing. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Angela. Well,
thank you, Dan, for being on the group, the GIAC.
Let's transition now to one of the most important parts of this meeting, and I'm sorry that we're sort of delayed in getting to this stage, but we have the opportunity to speak with our new provost. He's going to give a few brief remarks, but most importantly, we'll have the chance to dialogue with him, to have an open Q&A. So I know a few faculty senators had to leave at this point because I know this meeting has run over what maybe we had originally projected, but for those of you who are able to stay, I think that this could be one of the most valuable parts of the meeting, a chance to talk with our new provost directly. So I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Preston. Dr. Preston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you all today. I am absolutely delighted to be here at University of West Georgia. I'll start off by commenting that I know that this meeting has gone long and I'm standing between you and adjournment. So I'm keenly aware, and I know you all are doing great work in finishing up the semester, grading final exams and final projects. So I do want to be respectful and mindful of your time. That said, I do have a few comments that I'd like to convey to Faculty Senate. Number one is thank you for your service. You all are the academic leaders within the university, and you all are doing great work in helping lead West Georgia forward. So thank you. I know that these meetings are not the only time that you're serving on Faculty Senate. You are doing great work in your subcommittees, and that's evident in the agenda today. Everything from the curriculum to working with Dr. Jenks on Interfolio and testing that out. So thank you for all the faculty who've tested that out. I'm inspired by that because I know that putting together portfolios is significant work. So anything we can do to make that easier on faculty and help them convey the great work in teaching, service, and research that they're doing, all for that. The gen ed assessment that we just heard, fantastic there. I serve on the Computing Accreditation Commission and am keenly aware of the importance of continuous improvement and assessment. And so I commend you all for your work on that gen ed. That said, we do have an opportunity to move gen ed forward with the USG in the next year and a half or so. And that's an exciting time. For those of you that I have met, good to see you again. And for those who we have not met yet through that interview process or through my onboarding in the last month, I'll say I look forward to seeing you all in person when it's safe to do so. I am absolutely committed to the success of the University of West Georgia, and many of you have heard me say that I am a local resident. I measure my time now in quarters of century. So I've been in the West Georgia community for 26 years, been in the university system of Georgia. If you count my undergraduate teaching assistantship and my resident advisor role, was my first introduction in the university system for quite a long time. Served in those capacities then as a graduate assistant, a program coordinator, a lecturer on a interim basis, and then served as an assistant and associate professor at Clayton State, joined Southern Polytech, and went through the consolidation between SPSU and KSU, served as the faculty representative on the president's cabinet, representing the voice of the faculty across the university at KSU under President Papp. And then for the last 4.5 years, had the good fortune of serving back in the College of Computing at KSU. But I'll say the absolute best job I have is working with you all at West Georgia. I'm so excited to be here working with you as your provost, and I'm absolutely committed to helping us move forward. I have an immense respect for shared governance. I served, and the curriculum work that you all have done, as exhibited earlier in this meeting today, I served as the chair of the undergraduate curriculum committee at SPSU, and know how important that is. So looking forward to working with you all and moving University of West Georgia forward. If you have any questions about my background or anything I can answer for you, happy to do so. And when Dr. Williams invited me to answer questions, I said I am learning. So if you ask me something where I'm still needing information, then I'm happy to get back with you and get an answer for you beyond this meeting. So thank you again for the opportunity, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Preston. Well, we will open up the floor, and I assume we'll have some questions from a number of people. So if you have a question, of course, just raise your hand. I'll just go through everyone. I'll call on people in the order in which I see you. So floor is open. Well, maybe we can, I don't see any raised hands. I assume we'll get a few as we go along, but maybe we can start with a question since I don't see any others. There have been a lot of questions, as you know, over the last few months this fall regarding organization of the colleges and schools. And I think a lot of faculty are wondering, especially if they were in a unit that did get reorganized, where is this going? We know, I think based on what you've communicated earlier, what the USG policy manual has said is that ultimately the academic organization is the purview of the president. As you told the executive committee, that's often delegated to the provost, though that's an arrangement that I guess varies a bit. But in your capacity as the new provost, can you tell us anything about the process that we could expect going forward? I mean, presumably there will be new academic units created, maybe even in the imminent future, the next few months. What is that process going to look like? How are those decisions going to be made? How are faculty going to be notified or involved in the communication process?
Sure, great question, Dr. Williams. Thank you. I'll say my guiding principle is how can we best serve students? And I know that in the changing higher education landscape, we have some unique challenges ahead of us. Budgetary constraints as well as enrollment. I'm sure you all are all aware that we've got trends in higher education with the number of high school graduates expected to graduate in 2025, 2027, in that range, right? People are talking about this enrollment cliff that we're facing as a nation. If you were able to attend the presentation I gave when I was a candidate for the position of provost, I addressed those specifically. And fortunately, Georgia as a state is in a very good position. We will either grow or maintain high school graduation rates into the near future. That said, as I'm sure many of you all are hearing on the radio or seeing billboards, there are a number of universities that are out of state that are coming to the state. And we have an increased competitive landscape for high school graduates. And so what drives me is how can we best take care of the students that are currently attending West Georgia and give them the absolute best academic and co-curricular experience that they can have? And also, how can we position ourselves to be the first choice, that destination university where We are reaching out into the community. We are talking with middle schools and high schools. Students are making their decision about where to come earlier and earlier. And so the successes that I have had in the past are reaching into earlier grades and making a positive impression, being engaged in the community. As I mentioned to the executive committee on Wednesday, I think West Georgia does a fantastic job of that. I would love to expand that. And how can we be engaged and actively in the community? I mentioned the Carnegie designation that West Georgia has as an engaged university, and that's an amazing testament to the work that faculty and staff are doing. So to your question of how are decisions made, it's always within the lens of how can we best steward the resources that we have, that we've been entrusted by the state and by those that are paying tuition, and position ourselves competitively to deliver the best academic experience. And then that gets into the tactical decision of departments and schools and colleges. And as you mentioned, the administrative structure of the university is the purview of the president. And that's academics, and that's also beyond academics. Within academic affairs, I have in the first 4 days met with all of the deans across the university, and I will continue to be very transparent and be meeting with the deans. Next on my agenda is to begin meeting with department chairs and faculty. I'd like to set up regular communication, certainly with Faculty Senate and the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, but being available and present to faculty whenever possible and have conversations to hear. I'm jokingly telling people that I know enough about West Georgia to be dangerous because I have been in the local community for so long. My family has benefited from the cultural opportunities and performing arts and others here on campus. My daughter is currently dual enrolled, and I've had 2 children come through West Georgia and taking classes previously. So I'm familiar with the university, but this is a very different level of engagement. I'm happily in the new position and working with you all. And so I have a lot to learn, and I'm fully aware of that. And so I am very interested in hearing from you all about how we can be the best university. As an R3 regional comprehensive within the USG, we have a very defined mission, and I want to lean into that with you all and figure out what that looks like to benefit students and, of course, faculty and staff.
Thank you. I guess related to this question of UWG's mission, a number of faculty have privately expressed concerns to me about the state of graduate programs on this campus. And of course, as I'm sure you know, for the last approximately 5 years, give or take a couple, we've seen growth in graduate enrollment and decline in undergraduate enrollment. And the perception among some faculty this year is that there's been a decreased emphasis on graduate programs, and the focus has been on trying to recruit undergraduates, which has, I guess, been partially successful, though not demonstrably so. In other words, there's sort of a plateau of where we are in terms of undergraduate recruitment. So I guess over the next couple of years, how do you envision that ratio between graduate students and undergraduate students changing or staying the same? And of course, related to that would be resource allocation, how you, in other words, anytime there's a strategy for growing one area or the other area, then the question becomes an issue of allocation of faculty resources, program resources, that sort of thing. So I guess the specific question would be, in an ideal situation, would you like to see the ratio of undergraduate to graduate students on this campus remaining approximately the same or changing?
That's a great question. Thank you. I'll say that it depends on the discipline, right? There's no magic number, and it depends on what are our capacities, what are our areas of excellence. There could be some areas where we're excelling and growing in graduate. There could be others where we're dominating by undergraduate. I say let's talk as faculty and see the market and the opportunities. Also see, as you mentioned, we are within a system. So what are the other universities that students are looking at, and how can we be have distinguished programs both at the undergraduate and the graduate level? I will say that West Georgia is enviable in the ratio that we have the graduate enrollment here as an R3. It's right, that's a Carnegie designation, and we need to maintain a breadth of graduate programming in order to maintain that status. We have a very healthy number in our graduate programs at West Georgia, and that's a very good place to be. That said, I don't see it as an or, I see it as an and, that with a robust graduate program that enables the expansion of research that faculty can do. And I also believe in vertically integrated teams. So you can have faculty mentoring your graduate students, and those graduate students can in turn be a part of a community within disciplinary areas that are mentoring undergraduate students alongside those faculties. So it increases our capacity to serve our undergraduate students when we have robust graduate programs, whether that's graduate research assistantships or graduate teaching assistantships. It expands our ability to serve more students. And so I would look to each of the programs, and let's have those conversations in the coming months about how can we support each of the programs and their unique needs. Every program has diverse needs and diverse resources that need to be dedicated to them so that they can be successful. And I'm very interested in having those conversations with the deans and the chairs and the faculty in each of the programs.
Other questions? Does anyone want to jump in?
Welcome, Dr. Preston. This is Shelley Ellman. I'm the chair of the English, Film, Languages, and Performing Arts Department. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about transparency. I think you might have experienced at the beginning of the meeting the discussion, the good discussion, I think, about mass communications becoming all of a sudden a department that's proposing itself to be a school. And that was something that was, I think, a surprise to many of us because in the reorganization, it didn't start out that way. And so it seemed to happen quietly and not necessarily openly. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about transparency and maybe especially in policies such as determining schools and departments and such. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellman. I appreciate your welcome. And I absolutely believe in shared governance and transparency. When we bring people together, we get better results because we hear from diverse perspectives and different voices who can bring up great ideas. Some of the best things that I've had the good fortune of working on in the past have been ideas that have percolated up from conversations like that. And so I'm very aware that my personal approach and leadership style is to hear from everyone as much as possible and let the best ideas rise to the top in the market and then move forward and resource the decisions that we're making. So I welcome those conversations and moving forward, looking at resourcing and finding areas of excellence where we can invest in. And I'll also address, Dr. Williams, to your point of undergraduate and graduate, and similar, Dr. Ellman, to your question, we might have some programs that, according to the USG policies, are not meeting expectation with enrollment or number of graduates. So how can we resource them? Let's have conversations about investing in them to turn them around and tell that story well. I've talked to a number of you across the last few months about we all went into our disciplinary areas because we believe in them and we see how wonderful they are. So I'm also interested in telling that story and hearing from you all about what are the reasons why you went into your areas and what are we doing as a university in each of our disciplines, and telling those stories of faculty and students publicly, and that drives enrollment. It also addresses USG concerns about having successful and thriving programs, and so that's all part of that transparency that you're mentioning and asking about.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I think I'm seeing in the text. We've got a
Yes, Locke, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I couldn't find the raise hand feature. Dr. Preston, welcome as well to UWG. I'm Locke from physics, and my question is, so you've talked about UWG being an R3 institution. I think years ago, we kind of looked at UWG and KSU as being at the same level. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe KSU is now an R2 institution. So I guess my question is about your vision for where UWG should be heading. Thank you.
Thank you, Locke. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you asked the question when I was interviewing. Same question, yes?
Might have been. There were a number of candidates, so.
Yes. So I remember the question from a couple of months ago, and I believe that, yes, KSU and West Georgia, I mean, we can always compare within our comprehensive sector within the USG, that West Georgia and Kennesaw might have been on par years ago. And to your question of what's my vision of West Georgia, I would say, rather than trying to be the best R2 or ascend to an R2 or an R3 or an R1, becoming an R1 university and taking on Georgia Tech or Georgia State or UGA, my hope is that we are the best West Georgia that we can be. And look at what that means, and look at the assets and the faculty expertise and the programming that we have, both curricular and co-curricular, and elevate those as best as possible. So personally, I back to that transparency and shared governance. Let's have conversations around where are we excelling, how can we be the best in various markets and attract students, both graduate and undergraduate, here to West Georgia. So I think you're right that Kennesaw transitioned from an R3 to an R2 2 years or so ago. The expectations of research production and external funding and number of PhDs that we are producing, there are metrics that we could achieve and move the needle there. But then the question becomes why? Why are we chasing a designation for its own sake, or are we excelling in areas that we know are part of the West Georgia DNA? So I welcome those conversations with you all across the university, and say, where can we be the absolute best comprehensive university in Georgia, and how can we best attract those students?
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, last call for questions for the provost.
Well, Dr. Williams, if you'll allow me
to
absolutely, perhaps with a statement, and if someone does think of something, please reach out to me. Very happy to be working with you on Faculty Senate and the faculty across the university. I'm absolutely thrilled to be working with you all, and very interested in helping you and your programs and your students, and helping you as faculty at West Georgia to thrive, and absolutely thrilled to be focused on students and student success, and doing that alongside you. So thank you for the time today. I look forward to continued conversation, both in Faculty Senate and beyond. Thank you much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Preston. Well, we look forward to many more conversations. I'm sure we'll have those opportunities. So at this point, I think we have reached the end of a long meeting. I know it's a busy time for almost all of you, and certainly for me with grading. There's a lot to be done between now and Monday morning, I think. So I wish you all the best. Have a great and productive weekend, and wonderful holiday break, and we'll come back in January. Meeting's adjourned.